and seeing the mic.
Hi, my name is Robert D. McGinnis. This is Alabama Matters. My brother Anthony is going to be with us here today.
Hello, folks.
I'm running for the United States Senate by write-in ballot. Some people have asked me, am I a Republican or am I a Democrat or I'm independent? And I tell them the seat that I'm running for, that Richard Shelby is vacating, belongs to Alabama. It doesn't belong to any party. It doesn't belong to any individual. It belongs to the people, the residents of Alabama. Yes, I am a conservative. Yes, I support the conservative values of the Republican Party. But I'm running to give Alabama a third choice so that they have a choice not to just rubber stamp a party affiliate. The country is in such bad shape that we can no longer just look at the letter that's next to the candidate, the political candidate, and rubber stamp their name.
Amen.
We can't do that.
No, you can't. You can't just be party loyal. You've got to listen to the issues, to what's best for this country, no matter who's in the Senate or in the seat. If their values, Democrat or Republican, if their values line up with the values of the state of Alabama, that's who we need, and that's who I believe my brother is. So, yeah, let's talk about issues and not parties.
I want to make something very clear. We can talk about the issues, and the issues are important, but the Alabama residents are the most important issue that I want to talk about. Now, I served in the United States Air Force as a nuclear weapons security specialist. They had to do a background check on me because they didn't want to put some wacko in with. They didn't want to put them in charge of protecting priority A resources and give them a weapon and expect that they're going to do what they want. Is expected of them. So, for one thing, we're going to talk about issues. I want to talk about the Alabama people. My priority is the welfare, safety, ensure the safety, welfare of the Alabama residents, the health, safety, welfare of every single Alabama resident. That involves crime. That involves being able to get medical care, get your medicine when you need to. All these issues is about the health, safety, and welfare of the Alabama residents. I also worked as an investigator for a housing authority. And that was my goal. That was my main mission, is to look out on the health, safety, and welfare of all the people that was in the housing authority sites, or even in the 7 of the 14 counties that I was over. And that's what representatives in Congress is supposed to be doing. That's what the representatives at the state level should be doing, is looking out on the people in Alabama.
Correct.
And I talked to somebody just recently, and they told me that they agreed with me that when they get in office, they forget who they work for, and they said it takes them all but 2 days in their office, and they forget who they work for. That's not going to be me, Anthony.
I understand.
That's not going to be me. If the Alabama residents put me in the office, I'm going to be doing what I can do to make sure that their lives are better.
Yeah, I mean, because those politicians up there right now, they support. They make their choices based on lobbyists, and it's my belief. And I'm not pointing fingers here. It's my belief they get up there, and these big corporations will say, "Hey, if you vote this way, I will give you this, or I give you this much money, or I give you that." You know, that's how I think. Not all of them, but some of them get up there and do it for the money, and not looking out for the American people or the people of their state. And that's why we need somebody in there that will I'm not here for the money. I'm here for the people. And that's what you, Robert, you've said many, many times that's what you're about.
That's what I'm about.
If your values stops, if you can't, your values don't line up with the state of Alabama, that you will have to resign. And I respect that fully. I mean, because you will not find anybody up in the D.C. that will say that, much less do it.
They want to keep their job.
Exactly.
And they forget the purpose for them being there. Oh, and when they do that, they want to keep their job. And look, I'm coming out of retirement to do this, and I just felt like that Alabama needs a third choice. They need a name that they can put on the ballot so that they don't seem like that they're corralled into voting for any one person. If Alabama normally votes Republican,
right?
And I just felt like that I needed to put my name out there so that people would have a choice if they didn't want to vote Republican, but they had to because there wasn't nobody on there. I wanted my name to be an option.
Right, yeah.
So and it's okay. I ain't gonna have my feelings hurt if I don't get it. I'm just doing what I believe that God wants me to do right now.
That's all we can do.
And if He puts me in there, I believe that the values that I hold dear to my heart are the same values that Alabama holds to theirs. That I believe Alabama believes in God. And I was telling someone I was running for the United States Senate, and we did stop to get gas. And she asked me, and she said, "How conservative are you?" I told her I was conservative. She goes, "How conservative are you?" And I was confused. I said, "Is there degrees of being conservative?" And she says, "Well, there's some people who say they're conservative, and it's just below the line of being liberal." And I told her, yeah, they're conservative. It's more like a moderate, if you want to think about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, because I really do consider myself center right. I'm not so far right that I'm going to storm the Capitol, and I'm not. There are a couple of issues on the left have done that I agreed with, but I'm like center right. And I think that's what she was talking about. How far right are you?
Well, I told her, I said, I'm a blood-bought child of God. Now, I don't know if that's extreme right, a Bible-thumping, gun-carrying type that they think of. But see, it really doesn't matter in my case because I've made it clear that I have to check my values at the door in order to represent theirs.
That's true.
So it really doesn't matter if I were asked my views on abortion or if I were asked my views on gun rights or anything like that, I would have to tell them this is what I think Alabama thinks. This is where I think Alabama stands on the issues.
Right.
And those are my views. Those are my views.
Makes sense.
It's not about how I feel about it because no matter how I feel about it, I've got to be in tune with the residents of Alabama and represent their values. Yeah. And if I can't do that, they're going to need to find someone who can.
Correct.
Yeah. And so.
Well, see, and like I was saying, I'm center right, meaning that I'm willing to listen to both sides.
Oh, yeah.
You were talking. We were talking earlier, and you talking about somebody who said that they would listen to both candidates and then make a decision on who he wanted to vote for. And see, that's where I'm at. I will listen to the issues that they talk about and who I agree with, whether it be Republican or Democrat. If it's beneficial for the state of Alabama, the people of Alabama, that's who I'm going to vote for. Whether because so that's why I say I'm center right because I tend to lean to the right to be conservative, but if there's a liberal Democrat that makes sense to me, I'm gonna be like, you know what, he or she has a good point.
But see, I come across a person who was not like that, just recently. And I was explaining to her, and everything was fine. We was having a great conversation and so forth. But when I told her that I was running for the United States Senate, she asked me if I was Republican. I said, well, I lean Republican. I had handed her my card. She handed it back and said, "I don't mean to be rude, but I'm Democrat." And I was like, "Really? Really? You're Democrat? Really?" And my point to her was, I was shocked, actually.
Yeah,
I
that
was
would have threw me off too.
I was shocked because of everything that's going on in this country. The Republicans did not cause that. It was the policies of this administration and the Democrats that are in control in Congress right now that refuse to do anything about this. Not only did they cause it, they refuse to do anything to reverse it.
Right.
And so I was confused about why she would not uh, do like so many other Democrats are doing now and registering Republican. And you was telling me that it could be because of the Roe versus Wade is that she's mad that
They
reversed it
Yeah.
and put it back in the state's hands because uh, women had such control over whether the baby could be born or not. I like what you brought up before. I agree. It should have been reversed a long time ago. Even after it was first come down, it should have remained in the state's hands because it was unfair. It was unfair to men where they did not have any control over whether or not the baby was going to be born or not, and they were forced to take care of pay for this baby without any say whether it's being born. Now, I'm not saying that babies we should be able to say, hey, this baby's going to be born. That's not. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is Roe versus Wade was not equally fair to men.
Right.
Is what I'm saying.
But when they reversed when they reversed it, they made it a level playing field for men and women.
It made it fair for everybody nationwide.
Made it fair for everybody.
And the states to get to decide that. Now, I'm all about that now, Anthony. I'm all about the state being able to decide social issues for their state.
Exactly.
I'm all for that. And I'm hoping that Alabama residents are all about that too.
Yeah, me too.
Because I believe that Alabama can set a trend. They can set a precedent where the people have the last say. That's right for their state. For their state.
Correct.
I don't have look. If I disagreed with something that the state was doing, that the people in Alabama wanted in Alabama, let's just take the lottery for a second. Okay, There's people in Alabama who want the lottery.
Yes.
And there's people in Alabama who don't want the lottery.
Yes.
Okay. If they brought the lottery into Alabama and I didn't want it, I have the right to move.
That's true.
I can move to Mississippi or anywhere. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I have lived in California. I have lived in Florida. I have lived in Texas, which is a far right state. California being a far left state. And Florida is kind of like right up the middle. And I think Alabama is not up the middle, but Alabama is more leaning right than they are left.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, there are sections in the state where that is more liberal than it is conservative. Cities and towns and stuff like that. I said that to say this: I was so out of place in California. I was the odd man out. I mean, it was so awkward for me to live in California because the way that they think out in that state, it was like, this has to be the Wizard of Oz. I've done left Kansas. We're no longer in Kansas anymore. And I was like, I can't do it. So I had to move back down south where I fit in.
Mm-hmm.
But my point is, they choose to live that way, and that's fine. That's their state. That's if you don't agree with it, move. Just
and
like you said.
Are.
And that's what I did. I moved out of California because I could not agree with anybody I talked to out there.
And I think that that's the way it ought to be, state by state.
Yeah.
The states are to be the people. The majority rule in every single state ought to be able to be the ones who have the last say on what goes on in their state.
Yes.
And I don't think it's right that the federal government or some policy at the national level comes down and tells the state, hey, you know what? We're going to make you do this in the name of equality. so that everybody nationwide is equal. Well, that's according to their perspective of
Exactly.
what equality is. And when you do that, that's socialism.
Right.
That's totalitarianism.
Right.
Now,
If you want individual rights, you got to. It's got to stay at state level.
it's got to be.
It's got to stay at state level. If you want, if you want rights, equal rights for everybody, that free health care and free this and free that, now you're getting into socialism.
Mm-hmm. And you're telling the states that they have no choice in the matter.
Right.
That takes away our freedom to self-govern.
Exactly. And this country was built on self-governing, each state self-governing itself without interruption or interference from federal government. And I understand that there are federal laws, and you commit a crime going across state lines. Oh yeah, you just committed a federal crime. I get that. But if you commit a crime in somebody's state, you're going to be punished in that state. You know, and then if you cross the state line and commit another crime in a different state, once you've served that time in the first state, then you're going to have to serve time in the next state.
Let me bring something up. I want to that I'm. It's been on my mind, and I think that there are some things that needs to be at the federal level, that needs to be regulated at the federal level, and one of them is child support.
That's a good point.
You know, because you can go to one state, and they'll have this child support. You go to another state, they'll have that child support. You know, and I'm thinking, no, wait a minute.
And if it's unilateral,
yeah,
you know,
I'm thinking, wait a minute. Well, first of all, since we got into that, I'm going to go ahead and break this down a little bit. It's my opinion that judges cannot use their threat of contempt of court to set child support measures.
That's a good point.
It's an abuse. It's an abuse of powers to use their contempt of court powers to set child support. Because I asked the question one time, I said, well, is child support a debt? Well, no, it's not.
It's not considered a debt.
It's not considered a debt. Well, now get this. In the DOJ, in their manual, it very clearly states, be very careful not to use the authority to enforce a civil debt. Okay? But then they go and they enforce child support as though it's a debt. Like it's a debt. Okay? I'm like, how in the world can you enforce child support like it's a debt when it's not considered a debt?
Yeah, that's
okay. That's the first thing. Second of all, I'm in the opinion that a judge cannot force a person to pay something that's not a debt. Right. He cannot establish a debt. He cannot establish. Look.
Yeah, it ain't like you went and bought something on credit and then didn't pay it back. It ain't like that.
That's the first thing. A financial obligation is a debt.
Correct.
Okay? I said, so what if it's not a debt, then what it is? Well, it's a support obligation. Well, that's a debt.
Right.
That's a debt. And you cannot judicially force somebody to pay something they don't originally owe, or that they put themselves in debt for.
See, I got sued once because the largest debt collector company in the country sued me, saying that I owed a certain amount of money, and I told them, no, I don't. I said, I did not create that debt, and they're like, well, it's in your name. I said, well, take me to court. So they did. And we went to court, and they were sitting up there and saying, is your name this and your name that, and you do this and you do that? Yeah, yes, and yes. Did you create this debt? I did not. And my lawyer was like, do you have a list of purchases that you claim my client made? And that lawyer could not pull up not one thing, not one purchase, time, date, a place, nothing. All they had was my name and an amount they said I owed. And that judge was like, okay, case dismissed.
Okay, so let me
You know,
let me go with that. Let me run with what you just said. Now, as far as child support goes, this is the way every state usually does this. They will go and find out. I'm talking about the states or whoever child support agency is. They will go and find out who the biological parent of this child is,
right,
and then they'll go to court and they'll say you have to pay child support.
right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here's the deal. Being the biological, let me say. Well, let me put it. Let me break it down so everybody can understand this. Custody of the child is the parental right that makes that parent responsible for that child. Custody
Right.
is
Yeah.
okay. So they go and get this find out who the parent is. This parent does not have any custody of this child, but yet they force them to pay child support without having the parental right of custody of that child. You cannot do that. You cannot do that. They will go. Judges have gone and stripped a person of their custody for this joint custody of this child, given full custody to the mother or whoever, and then force the parent to pay
non-custodial.
to pay child support, and I had no reason whatsoever other than I'm just going to give you full custody, and you can't do that. That is a parental right that makes the person responsible for that child's welfare. Custody is
Right.
not biology, but custody. Okay.
Correct.
And the reason I say that is because I could go and adopt somebody, and now I am financially responsible for that child if I adopt them.
Yes.
If I married somebody and did not adopt that child, I am not financially responsible for that child.
Right.
So I'm saying that's proof that custody is the linchpin.
Yeah.
But judges have gone in there, restrict this person of their custody, not even joint custody, and force them to pay child support on it, and strip them, violate their parental right to custody of that child. You cannot do that. You cannot do that. That right there is gross civil rights violations and gross abuse of the judge's contempt of court powers. I'm going to bring that up. If I get into office. I'm going to say, we will not be doing that again. We will be regulating this at the state level. And guess what? I mean, at the federal level. And guess what? You will not be able to put a person in debt if you will not. Child support is not going to be able to put a person into poverty below the poverty level. Yeah. You're not going to be able to do that. I said, and in addition to that, it's going to be pre-tax.
There you go.
It's going to be pre-tax. If a person has to pay child support, it's going to be pre-tax.
And the
person who gets it's going to have to pay tax on it. Guess what? Your family income just rose.
That's only fair because the person receiving the money is the people who pay taxes on it.
Right.
And that's only fair.
Right.
It doesn't matter where the money's coming from. It doesn't matter if you're working. It doesn't matter if you're receiving child support. It doesn't matter if you're receiving money from somewhere or somebody.
It should be taxable.
You're responsible for the taxes.
It should be taxable. I don't care if it's child support or whatever, alimony. Don't care.
100% agree.
It ought to be taxable.
100%
Your household income.
I got to clap on that one.
Yeah. So, and here's another thing that I wanted to go one step farther. Now, they probably won't like this, okay? The people that's listening to this probably won't like this. But we have got so many children who are living in single-parent families who are not receiving child support.
Yes, that is true.
Okay? So there needs to be a tax or an increase on the person who's paying child support. There needs to be a tax on that to help the ones who don't have child support and put them in school and care for the school. You know why? Because there are teachers out here that's taking money out of their own pocket so that these students can have pencils and papers and stuff like that.
Yes, I have heard that.
Now, I understand I understand that there is money allocated for such things.
Yes.
I understand.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this would be a great place for the money to be funneled through or taxed through, or this way, do it that way. But at the same time, now that we're on that note, I think that the money that's allocated towards schools, so your public school and you're getting federal funds,
Correct.
I think that it should not that it ought to be allocated to the lowest income first,
Mm-hmm.
the schools with the lowest income first,
Yeah.
and then allocated accordingly to the richest,
Right.
to the most wealthy,
Yes.
so that the poorest gets the majority part of it.
That makes so much sense.
And then as you get more wealthy, each school district gets wealthier and wealthier and wealthier, get a less percentage.
And while on this topic of taxes, we brought up about state lotto, and there's a lot of people who don't want a state lotto, and there's a lot of people who do. I'm kind of on the fence about a state lotto, because if the money is handled correctly, it could do wonders for a state.
Correct.
But my worry is if we get a state lotto and people start putting money into this lotto, it goes straight into the hands of the politicians in the state. And I don't trust most of them to do what's right with that money.
Mm-hmm.
Like what you were saying, put it towards schools, put it towards
Mm-hmm.
roads,
Mm-hmm.
put it towards what the state needs.
Mm-hmm.
But if we had a state lotto and they use that money correctly, the situation in our state would grow better by the day.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Let me give you an example. I got an example of what you're talking about. It was either last year or a year before. Kay Ivey supported a tax. I guess it would be a tax or something like that. They wanted
Was
this
it the gas tax?
No, I don't know. It was money that they wanted to use for roads and so forth.
Okay.
Okay. And what happened was the reason I know about it is because I was sent a survey and asked, do I think that that they should do this? And I got to reading it, and what caught my eye was that some of it was going to be allocated to this over one thing, and the rest of it was going to be distributed from the state down to the counties. It was going to distribute it at the state level down to the counties. And I told somebody, I said, the counties will not see 1 red cent of that. They will not see 1 red cent of it. I said, I do not. I said, now if they will say that they will give, it will be allocated to the counties by district,
right?
By district level, I'll go for it. I said, but the state level, what they're going to do is they're going to hog it and use exactly what happened.
Exactly.
That's what happened. I'm saying that if the state's going to get anything that it's supposed to go for a purpose, it's going to go into the general fund of that local community, not the state general fund, but the city or the county or the district general fund that it's supposed to go to. It is not going to the state. It's going to go to the general fund of which it's supposed to go to.
Right.
It's not going to be trickled down. Oh, but no. You know,
that makes sense to me.
But we only got about a minute and a half left here because I only run this for 30 minutes. I want to remind everybody who's listening to this, or whoever will listen to this, that regardless of how I feel about things, I still have to be in tune with Alabama and make sure that they are the ones that I represent.
There you go. If somebody's listening to this and you disagree with what we're saying and what Robert is saying, he will line his beliefs up with yours.
That's what I'm saying.
He will. I mean, that's the point. That's the whole point right there. We'll come on here and we'll rant about stuff that you may disagree with, but just know, just because you disagree with it doesn't mean we won't compromise. Robert won't compromise with you.
That's the reason I'm there, is to make sure that what they want's represented.
Exactly.
And do what's best to benefit them and to make sure, and I say them, I'm talking about the residents of Alabama.
Yes.
make sure that the residents, their lives they benefit from it.
Exactly.
You know, and that's where I go with this. But our time's up, and I want to thank you for listening to Alabama Matters. Remember to tell somebody Robert D. McGinnis is running for the United States Senate by write-in ballot, and we do thank you for tuning in.
God bless and have a great week.